Good evening, and welcome to the April 5th work session for the Vineland Public Schools. Roll call, Ms. Haley.
Ms. Acosta?
Here.
Ms. Codispoti?
Present.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Here.
Mr. Medio?
Here.
Ms. Rios?
Here.
Mr. Sobrana?
Present.
Mr. Jennings? Mr. Boardley?
Present. In compliance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Law, the Vineland Board of Education has caused notice and posting of this meeting to be sent to the following, announcing the time and place thereof, agenda, etc. The Daily Journal, the Press of Atlantic City, the Grapevine, the Clerk for the City of Vineland, and the Administrative Office Public Bulletin Board. Please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a resolution for executive session?
Yes. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City of Vineland School District will convene into executive session on Wednesday, April 5th, 2017, for the following reasons as outlined in NJSA 10:4-12. Discussion of Residency Committee recommendation regarding MK, non-certificated supervisors, Lavecchio claim, contracts for sale of vacant lots to interested persons, and any matters falling within the attorney-client privilege, to the extent that confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise his ethical duties as a lawyer.
Thank you, Mrs. Haley. Do we have special presentations tonight?
We need a vote for the executive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We need
So
a motion.
moved.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Haley?
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Ms. Codispoti?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Ms. Rios?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes. Sorry. We have a special presentation.
We do. Tonight we have Mr. Nathan Fry, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, will honor Veterans Memorial School teacher Evelise Flores and student Mosherlyn Torto on winning a National Science Award.
Good evening, Mr. Frangipani, Mr. Boardley, members of the Board of Education. Tonight it's my pleasure to congratulate Ms. Evelise Flores and all of her students at Veterans Memorial School. Earlier this year, Ms. Flores and her class worked on a national competition. The objective was to develop a model of a scientific concept that simplifies the concept so that other people can understand it. Thankfully for us and her students and Ms. Flores, one of her entries was chosen as the grand prize winner. So I don't want to give too much away. I would rather have Ms. Flores come up and tell you a little bit more about it, to the process she went through, and actually share the project with you. Thank you. Ms. Flores?
Hello, good evening. Basically the contest was to submit a student model, and out of all the student models that I had, all of our students agreed that Mosherlyn's model was the best that represented the lab activity that we did that day, and I had no idea that I would be the grand prize winner. I originally submitted for like a $50 gift card so that the kids could choose what they wanted to buy for the class if we even placed. And when I got the email, it was just like such a shock, and I was so overwhelmed, and students were so happy for me, and I was happy for them because I could go and bring back more knowledge, like more exciting activities to do for the class, and I also brought them back souvenirs, so they're really happy about that. But it wouldn't have been possible without my amazing students, and I just want Mosherlyn to come up here and share what she did for the project.
Had the chance too short. In class, we had a chance to witness the chemical reaction between oxygen and magnesium under the influence of heat. we couldn't directly view because that would be the equivalence of looking at the sun. However, we were able to take videos of it. I couldn't show that video today, but I would like to describe it. On iQuest, I made a model of the chemical reaction. On the left is tweezers we used to hold up the magnesium. On the right is the heat source, which is a lighter. Underneath is the beaker. Inside the beaker is residue of the magnesium oxide that was created. You may also see some dots. They represent the participants of the chemical reaction. On the left holds the chemical structure of magnesium oxide. The red circles represent the magnesium and the blue circles represent the oxygen. This experiment was a model to the similarity of what happens in a firework. In a firework, there are periodic elements that counter in making of a firework. Fun fact, each periodic table element used in fireworks can make a different color. Magnesium can make the color silver as viewed in this lab. Thank you.
Wow. Do you want to step up here? We have some certificates for you.
Wonderful presentation.
Absolutely.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Very exciting.
Next, we have our student liaison report, Grace Galan, the senior class president.
Hello. It's been a little while, but we've had some things going on at VHS, so I'm going to talk about them. Dancing with the Staff was this past Friday, March 31st, and we raised over $1,000 for Project Graduation. In third place was myself and Mrs. De Jesus, also with Best Costume. In second place was Miss Wilson, Davon Mosley, Antonio Cordova, and Andrea Ruiz, and they also got Best Choreography. And our grand champions were Jessica Moore and Mr. DeShields, and they also got Best Presentation. So that was a good fundraiser for Project Grad, and it was a lot of fun. The Youth to Youth RAF program at VHS is sponsoring a pasta dinner on April 30th from 12 to 3 at the North Italy Hall. And I have tickets for that if you're interested. And come out to Walmart on Delsey Drive this weekend to help pay for the bus for the annual leadership conference that they go on. So they're raising money for that. NHS will be at Winslow School this Friday for Bubbles for Autism. Project Grad is also doing a breakfast fundraiser on April 30th from 7:30 to 11 a.m. at VHS South. Tickets are $8, and I also have those tickets. I promise I don't just come up here to sell you guys stuff. The senior class held a car wash fundraiser on March 25th, and we raised over $500 for our senior trip to the Poconos, which is at the end of May. And we're also getting ready for our grad night on June 9th, so we're raising money for that, collecting money. And our prom committee will meet tomorrow for prom, which is June 1st. And we're talking about different ideas and different things that we have in place. And also we got our senior shirts. I'm wearing one. And the back says the last 90s class. With different characters of like cartoons from kind of the 2000s, because we grew up in the 2000s, but it's okay. And so, yeah, so that's basically what's going on. Fundraising, getting ready for the end of the year stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You have the HIB report. Are there any questions?
Comments from our board solicitor?
Yes. I've been requested to speak regarding the unintended participation by Mr. Boardley at our March 15 special meeting because we will need to approve the minutes of that meeting, and those minutes will need to be corrected. And that should take place next week when the minutes are being presented to you for approval. Bylaw 0170 prohibits a board member from participating, by audio and/or visual device in more than 3 meetings in any consecutive 12-month period. Mrs. Haley has confirmed that Mr. Boardley participated by audio and/or visual device on June 8, 2016, January 4, 2017, March 8, and March 15, 2017. Therefore, his telephonic participation in last night's meeting, which would have been the 15th of March, exceeded the express limitation under the bylaw. Assuming that the technical violation of Bylaw 0170 precluded Mr. Boardley from participating and voting at the March 15 meeting, the next question is, what effect did this have on the motion to approve the preliminary budget? I researched the issue and conferred with Mike Kalber of the New Jersey School Boards Association Legal Department. The general rule is that all actions by a Board of Education require a majority vote of the quorum unless a particular statute or code requires a greater number of votes. For example, the statutes regarding the hiring of personnel, withholding increments, non-renewal of the chief school administrator, and evaluation of the chief school administrator require the vote of a majority of the full board. Such language mandates that 5 votes are needed. However, if that language is not expressed in the statute, then the general rule applies and the vote is carried by a majority of the quorum. There were 8 members present on March 15. If Mr. Boardley were removed from that number, 7 people were then in attendance voting. A quorum of 7 is 4, and 4 people voted in favor of the preliminary budget. Since 4 of you voted to approve the preliminary budget, the motion should be considered adopted. Consequently, Mr. Boardley's disqualification did not affect the passage of that motion. This is the requirement for a preliminary budget. When the board votes on the final budget, that statute requires 5 votes, a majority of the full membership of the board. So what will happen is the minutes of that meeting will reflect that 8 of you participated and the vote was 5-3. So the minutes next week, when you consider them for approval, will need to be corrected. And I will work with Mrs. Haley to have corrected minutes that will reflect what we just went over here today. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. DeSanto. Items for review by the board by Acting Superintendent, Mr. Frangiapane.
Thank you. Under Personnel, 1.1, discussion regarding the approval of the following: retirements, resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, employment transfers, students, substitutes, extracurricular activities, and extracurricular summer.
Discussion, comments?
1.2, discussion regarding the approval of the following pay rates: substitute guidance counselor, $200 per day, retroactive to September 1, 2016. Substitute bus drivers from $15 to $16 per hour, effective April 17, 2017. Long-term substitute clerical from $10.24 to $13.63 per hour, retroactive to February 6, 2017. Number 4, short-term substitute clerical from $10.24 to $10.75 per hour, effective April 17th, 2017. And please note, the New Jersey minimum wage increased to $8.44, retroactive to January 1st, 2017.
Any discussion, comments? Seeing none?
Okay. Procedures and operations, 2.1, discussion regarding the approval of field trips and district travel.
Any discussion or comments?
2.2, discussion regarding the approval of the 2017-2018 school calendar for pupil attendance as provided and on file with the board secretary.
Discussion, comments?
Under Buildings and Grounds, 3.1, discussion regarding the approval of the submission of the Vineland High School North W104 printing room alternative project, state plan number 115390-053-17-2000 to the New Jersey Department of Education for schematic and final approval as an other project with no state funding requested.
Any comments or discussion?
Okay, under Finance, 4.1, discussion regarding the approval of budgetary transfers general, school-based, and EPCA, February 2017.
Any comments or discussion? Next.
4.2, discussion regarding the approval of board secretary and treasurer reports for the February 2017 year.
Discussion or comments?
All right. 4.3, discussion regarding the approval of special education and student placements.
Any discussion or comments? None?
Okay. 4.4, discussion regarding the submission of the following grant application for the New Jersey Child Assault Prevention Program called CAP for grades pre-K through 12 and special needs children for a total of $23,033.
Any discussion or comments?
B, the Coles Grant for the Menny's Elementary School to host Read Across America Family Night in the amount of $500.
Discussion or comments? None?
The Gannett Foundation Grant for Duran Elementary School to strengthen and sustain a school-wide television broadcasting program in an amount of $5,949.
Discussion or comments? None?
The New Jersey Schools Insurance Group application for 2017 Safety Grant Program based on NJSIG underwriting surplus from July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016 in the amount of $39,033.53.
Any discussion or comments?
E, for fiscal year 2017, the Carl D. Perkins Grant amended application to the State of New Jersey Department of Education to reallocate $8,482 of the $99,155 original awarded amount to the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017.
Any discussion or comments? None?
4.5, discussion regarding the approval of school nutrition program vended meals contract between Creative Achievement Academy, LLC, and the Vineland Board of Education for July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018.
Discussion or comments? None?
4.6, discussion regarding the approval of the following contract for the Summer Food Service Program, a contract with Sedesco Management of Medford to provide summer food service programs from July 5th, 2017 through August 17th, 2017 at an estimated cost of $47,916 with the actual cost based on the number of meals served.
Question or comments?
4.7, discussion regarding the approval of the agreement between the Vineland Board of Education and the Salem County Vocational Technical School for the 2017-2018 school year for 36 full-time students at a cost of $5,027 per student.
Any comments or discussion?
Discussion regarding the approval of a memorandum of agreement between the Vineland Board of Education and Complete Care.
Comments or discussion?
4.9, discussion regarding the approval of the City of Vineland to enter in a shared service agreement with the Vineland Board of Education to assist in providing free influenza vaccines to eligible preschool students enrolled in the Vineland Public Schools preschool program to help meet the state requirement.
Discussion or comments?
4.10, discussion regarding the approval of a settlement with marine shale processors in the amount of $8,500 and to authorize the superintendent and board secretary to execute all appropriate and necessary documents relating to the settlement.
Discussion or comments? Mr. DeSanto, can you kind of enlighten people what this is about, please?
Yes. Some time ago, 15 to 20 years ago, some materials were hauled from the Board of Education property on West Avenue to the state of Louisiana. Ultimately, the U.S. Department, or U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, cited the hauler and the site for violations of the federal laws regarding environmental protection. There's strict liability of anyone who was involved in the process, intended or unintended, and there was a settlement reached with the EPA in the amount of $2 or $3 million, and the amount that was allocated for what was called peripheral or minimal participants was $8,500. Vineland Board of Education was involved in one load, and therefore that minimal amount was assessed against us. We obviously did not know where our hauler was going to take it. It was, in fact, contaminated stuff, and it's something to do with PCBs. But in any event, it's my recommendation to the board that this de minimis amount be paid, and we would get a full release and any further liability regarding the EPA assessment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With that, do we have any comments or discussion? Next.
Okay. 4.11, discussion regarding the approval of a resolution authorizing the rental of Vineland High School ball fields to PG Super 25 Mid-Atlantic LLC.
Discussion or comments?
4.12, discussion regarding the approval of a resolution to authorize the business administrator to purchase in excess of the bid threshold $40,000 office supplies, school supplies, janitorial supplies, vehicle and buses, technology infrastructure, and computers, computer accessories on state contract and/or Cumberland County and/or Educational Service Commission of Morris and/or the Educational Service Commission of New Jersey. See vendor list on file with the business administrator, and/or Hunterdon County Educational Service Commission. Also see the list with the business administrator, and/or Western State Contracting Alliance during the fiscal year 2017-2018.
Comments or discussion?
Mr. President, for the benefit of the public, could maybe Mrs. Haley could expand on this a little bit, how this is actually going to work?
Thank you.
Okay. This is a standard resolution that we put in, or standard item we put in each year. We often buy things on state contract or from educational service commissions, which are like other districts within the state, or co-ops. So those organizations go out and do their own bids, and then they have an approved list that you can buy off of, which saves us the time of going out to bid instead. So this particular item allows me to automatically approve a purchase order with them instead of us getting it approved each time. So basically, it's saying if we're buying a bus from Middlesex Regional and it's over $40,000, then I don't have to come for board approval because we've already approved to do that through a co-op or Ed Service Commission. Does that answer it?
Right, and there's a presumption that someone is reviewing these prices so that they are reasonable and appropriate, and that the taxpayers are well served.
Right, and these organizations have gone out to bid, but at the same time, we often will still compare other prices to these to make sure that they are good prices for us.
And we're free to pursue a lower price if we want.
Yes, right, we can.
We're not obligated to purchase from...
No, we are not.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? Thank you.
4.13, discussion regarding the approval of the following in regard to the Cumberland County Regional Cooperative Transportation. A, record and award bid number 8, 2016-2017, student transportation, Route 17-262, Shepherd Bus Service in the amount of $231 per diem.
Discussion or comments?
B, for various routes, the 2016-2017 quoted contracts are for the following vendors: Shepherd Bus Service, Great American Trolley, B.R. Williams Bus Service, Delaware City Bus Service, Curry Bus Service, and C.J. Bus Service at various rates, at various per diem rates.
Questions or comments? None?
C, the 2016-2017 out-of-district joint agreement with the Cumberland County Regional Cooperative, Route 763, Camden County, ESC.
Any questions or comments? None.
D, transportation statistics for February 2017.
Questions or comments?
4.14, discussion regarding the approval of awarding the following contract, asphalt paving services, bid number 9-17/18, contractor Asphalt Paving Corporation, 378 Elmwood Avenue, Malaga, New Jersey. Terms of July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, with the option to renew for a one-year term or a two-year term for a maximum of a three-year contract. Prices are listed with the business administrator.
Discussion or comments? None.
4.15, discussion regarding the approval to reject a locksmith van, bid number 13-17/18, no bids received.
Discussion or comments?
4.16, discussion regarding the acceptance of a bid from the John F. Scarpa Revocable Trust for the purchase of a property located at 1564 East Oak Road in the amount of $500,000.
Any discussion or comments?
4.17, discussion regarding the acceptance of a bid from the Ryan Flame or nominee for the purchase of a property located at 1898 Panther Road in the amount of $50,000.
Any discussion or comments? None.
Okay, that's what we have.
Thank you. Items for review by the board. Items proposed by board president or an individual board member. We have none. Review of the bills incurred during February 2017. Any discussion or comments on that? Now we have the opportunity for the public to address the board. Anyone would like to speak and come up to the podium, just a reminder, you're limited to 5 minutes per person. Seeing none. Do we have any committee reports? Seeing none. Anything for old business or new business?
I have something. I don't know if it falls under old, new business. The sale of the properties, the two, we're going to be getting a sizable revenue, I guess, from that. Where would that money, could you maybe, let the board or at the public also how that would work?
When I did the budget presentation, included on the revenue side was $650,000 on proceeds from sale of properties. So we had estimated from selling these buildings and the lots that we would get $650,000. So that revenue was used to help balance the budget next year. And that's why the timing of the closing on these is scheduled for July. And we're on target. We are on target.
Thank you. I just thought maybe the public
Yeah,
might
no,
like to know
that's
that,
good.
too.
Thank you. Mhm.
Mr. President, in regard to the vacancy on the board, the deadline for submission of applications is Friday, I believe.
Yes.
What is the process moving forward in terms of a committee to review the questions and then schedule the interviews and have the vote? Mr. DeSanto, we're under some time pressure, are we not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Could you explain that, please?
Sure. Under the vacancy law, a Board of Education has 65 days from the date of the vacancy. In this case, April 1 was the effective date of Mr. Pagano's resignation. So you have 65 days from there to appoint a substitute. If the board fails to do so, technically the county superintendent can step in and make the appointment, or the county superintendent can give you somewhat of an extension. But that would be the process. The board does it, and if not, the county superintendent does it. In terms of the board's process, historically, the board has solicited by advertisement, which you've done, which is returnable on the 7th of April, interested candidates who are to submit a letter of interest and their resume. The deadline, as you mentioned, John, is April 7th. The board determines the process that you want to use from there, and I think that's an appropriate discussion for tonight under new business, how you want to work it. In other situations in the past, the board has developed a set of questions, common questions for all of the candidates. Last time, it was 5 questions submitted. The candidates were all escorted 45 minutes before the interview meeting into the executive conference room, and they were given 45 minutes to answer the 5 questions, and then they would come out one by one, and when they were finished, they would take a seat. The reasoning behind that was that the candidates would certainly be completing those questions themselves without any coaching or assistance with anyone. Then, last time, the board president asked a 6th question of each candidate at the podium, and they had to give a rather impromptu response, or not impromptu, but a live response to that verbally from the podium. What happens is that the board, if you were to develop the questions as a committee of the whole, in my opinion, that discussion has to take place in public. And if you have that discussion in public, it's fine, but once you agree upon the 5 questions or 6 questions, those questions will be known to all the candidates. And if you don't have any problem with that, that process is perfectly okay. And then the board, by consensus, can decide which 5 or 6 questions you're going to ask. If you don't want to discuss that in public, then you do it by a committee of 4 of you, with the other 4 of you submitting any questions that you might want to ask to the committee, and ultimately the committee would decide which 5 or 6 questions would be asked. So this would be an appropriate forum, John, for the group to discuss which way you want to go in terms of that.
Well, I don't have any problem with the process the way you outlined it. In fact, I had emailed Mr. Jennings and volunteered to be one of the people on the committee. I'm also aware of the extraordinary nature of these circumstances, which gives me an opportunity to say to Mr. Boardley, welcome back. I believe it's nothing short of a miracle, given the nature of your injuries and that terrible accident that you're sitting here, and we're all glad to see you.
Thank you.
So what I'd like to see is that we establish a protocol and move forward so that we can fill this vacancy as quickly as possible.
I also emailed Mr. Jennings and said I would be willing to sit on that committee also, just so we can get this process started.
Yeah, I'm going to be in discussion with him hopefully tomorrow to find out who his selections are for the committee. I think we have 4 or 5 people that have offered to be on that. I being one of them, which I would gladly, give up a spot for any of you. So I'll be in discussion with him, like I said, tomorrow, and definitely have an answer by Friday and get that moving.
And I had emailed Mr. DeSanto because I had some concerns about who was going to be on the committee and what the nature of the questions are going to be. Obviously, none of us have any interest in trying to trip up a candidate with some bizarre questioner that would be outside the realm of their knowledge or expertise in any particular area. We just want to get a sense of, what they feel their qualifications are and why they should be serving on the board. So my only concern was that if I had what I considered to be a reasonable question, that there was no guarantee that that would be one of the ones selected. So that was my concern. That was my reason for asking to be on the committee.
Just a point of order, it's up to the board whether or not you want to go with the committee of the whole or this ad hoc committee. So if the consensus of the board is that you're okay with the ad hoc committee, then of course Mr. Jennings would appoint the members, which can be no more than 4. Mm-hmm. And under your bylaws, the president is a ex officio member of any committee you have. But as Mr. Boardley said, he's willing to step aside if he were appointed. So
I don't have a problem with sequestering the candidates. I think that's fair, so that they and I don't know who comes out first, whether one person has a longer time to.
Alphabetically, I
you know.
believe it was done.
Yeah, okay.
Everything was tried to be as objective and neutral as possible.
okay.
And as I said, once that candidate is done, that candidate is asked to sit in the audience so that everybody can see he or she is done, and there's nothing else after that. And then one by one, they would come out.
Yes, sir.
Well, to speed this process up, this work session took about 25 minutes. So I don't expect next week's meeting to take much more than that. And there's 7 of us sitting here right now. Unless somebody has somewhere they have to rush off to later, why don't you just put 4 people together and come up with some questions? And why don't we do this next week at the board meeting? And that person can get vetted possibly in time for the May meeting.
I think it's a reasonable place to start would be the list of questions last time we had an opening. I mean, I don't know how far you would want to vary from a standard list anyway, really.
Right. I mean, if the committee were to consider the questions that were used last time, that might make the job a lot easier. The only question I would have, Gene, was that if the Friday at 4 o'clock is the deadline, Mrs. Haley may not be able to notify the candidates until Monday, and you'll have to decide whether you think it's okay Monday to notify them and have them come Wednesday, for it. That's the only thing that the board would have to consider, whether 48 hours notice would be enough time, that's all,
Well, if we decide tonight that we want to go in that direction, couldn't we notify them now that there's likelihood
Anybody
that-
that's submitted, yeah.
Yeah,
Anybody that's submitted now, and then anybody that submits on Friday, just let them know when they submit, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I
And you
just
can
wanted-
have a notice in the paper, I'm sure.
Mrs. Haley, how many
Watching this meeting right now.
Yeah.
candidates do we have?
We currently have 4.
So it's not an incredibly large group, and
Not yet. I mean, we have until Friday.
right.
Ms. Haley, as far as the resumes, do they get emailed out to us to review, or do we get them?
I don't remember the process.
They were hand-delivered to the board to
Okay.
assure that there would be, no interception of them, because there's always a danger on the
Yeah.
email. As long as the board members get them, that's the key thing.
So
Yeah.
after 4 o'clock on Friday, then we hand deliver them at that point, you
Yeah.
think? Okay.
Would that be okay with the board if it was hand-delivered? Like,
Okay, with me.
Sure.
I mean, if you have concerns with the time frame being too short, you could set it up for the following week, although the district is on vacation for that week.
But the point was good that the people who have currently submitted, they could be notified right away, and then when the other people, at least they'll know by Friday rather than Monday.
Mike, I have a question. If the cutoff's at 4, most of the people that make the deliveries, I think they probably end their day at 4. Should we schedule to have somebody stay later to make the deliveries, or is Monday okay? Like, what
Or
do
you
people?
can
That's up to
call,
the board.
like I can, if you call me, I'll come pick up my own packet.
Yeah,
So
so
if
will I.
anybody else can do it, then
Well, I won't be here
I mean, I'm not sure
then
what,
that would get rid of some.
on Monday.
Friday. And
What's the consensus?
I'm not real busy. I could probably pick up 2 or 3 and deliver them.
Okay.
And Mr. DeSanta, not to belabor the point, but one more thing about this entire process. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, it's a violation.
Okay, I'll hold that question.
Any other questions or comments?
So that would mean that the committee has to meet Monday or Tuesday. If
The
we're doing-
committee?
Yeah, the committee that gets picked.
But right now, you're all here right now, whoever the committee is.
We don't know yet. He has
Well-
to meet with Chris.
Like I said, I'm talking to Mr. Jennings tomorrow and figure out who he wants to put on the committee.
Well, what he's saying was that as vice chair, vice president, you're sitting tonight,
Yeah.
you could make the appointment. Is that what you're suggesting, Gene?
All right, now I'm going to back up to the question. I can't help
There you
it.
go.
One of the things you mentioned in the correspondence that we had was a problem with vetting, which is why that we cannot vote someone in and then have them sworn in the same
yes.
night.
Okay.
Can you go over that a little
Yeah,
bit?
sure.
Because I was actually ran into that problem. My employment ended on December 31st, 2015. I was sworn in a few days later, and within 2 months, they couldn't vet me because of problems with the company that was doing the work.
What Mr. Sabran is talking about is that even board members must undergo the criminal background check that is required by the department. As a result of, I guess was processing time, right, Dr. Rossi, and computers and all that, the department permitted board members to be sworn in, as long as they say, I will uphold the laws, and then subject to the successful completion of the check. Mrs. Haley received the communication from the department that exemption is no longer there, that a board member within 10 days of appointment must submit to the criminal background check and can be sworn in only after successful completion of the check. So if the board were to do this process next week, appoint someone, we could not swear him in, and that he or she could not sit that night. We would await the criminal background check, and then whether the candidate would want to do this at a public meeting or whether I would do it, I could swear them in here at the office, and they would be ready for next month's work session. But what Mr. Brand is talking about is that we can no longer just swear the person in on the spot as we had done previously. And so that everybody knows, the process is the interviews take place in public, the deliberations by the board on the merits and qualifications of the candidates get discussed in executive session, and the appointment is made in public. That's a commissioner ruling on the process.
All right, so in reference to the Ad Hoc Committee and the submissions I got, I'll appoint Mr. Sabrana, Mr. Fiocchi, and Mrs. Cataspati to that committee. And I'll ask Mrs. Cataspati to chair that.
It could be a fourth member if you're sitting as.
Or maybe Chris.
I'll let Chris.
You're going to be on.
Oh, okay. And then myself. So,
So everybody's aware, we do have executive session first. Okay.
do we have a
And
list,
yeah.
do we have a list of the questions that were asked last time?
Yes.
So we can.
I have to go look. I might have to text Debbie on that
I
one.
didn't know.
I don't have them with me. Debbie has a
While you're-
folder. I'll have to go check.
I will go to my office and see if I can locate it, but.
Mr. Borley, I may have a file downstairs.
All right, thank you.
Check that.
Have it, Joe?
After the meeting, I'll check that.
Thank you.
Freezing.
Anything else under new business? Motion for adjournment to executive session?
So moved.
Roll call for executive session? To adjourn to executive session?
No, all in favor.
All in favor? Aye.
All in favor of going to executive session, right?
Yes.
Nicole was scheduled to arrive at 6:45, so, oh, she's here? Oh, good. Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
At 6:45.